Hey guys, welcome back to Anthony's Tennis Hub. My name's Anthony Hirsch, and welcome to the 2024 tennis season. Today I'm going to be discussing United Cup. Today I'm going to be talking about Brisbane, Auckland, stuff going on both the ATP and the WTA sides. We're going to be talking about Djokovic's loss to Alex de Minaur at United Cup, and also, of course, comebacks. Lots of comebacks, and especially comeback from Naomi Osaka on the WTA side, and the comeback that everybody's been talking about is Rafael Nadal back in Brisbane, which is really taking a hold of the tennis world. And I want to talk about that. But so the first thing that I want to talk about is the Rafa comeback. That seems like that is the thing that is at the very center of the tennis world at the moment. Everyone's talking about it because we've gotten used to this kind of like all-time great kind of title, right? But whenever an all-time great kind of comes back from after a year of play, you have to turn your head and look, because this is not a regular player. This is a player that has done things that almost no player throughout history would have even imagined doing. And his name is Rafael Nadal. First opponent, Dominic Thiem. When people look back at the history books, they'll see that an unseeded Rafael Nadal was paired up against Dominic Thiem. There's something interesting about that. Like, the fact that this guy, Dominic, who he had played already 2 Roland Garros finals against, Dominic, who he had already played over 10 matches against, some very big matches, and a guy who's beaten him 4 times on clay, beaten him the last 2 times that they played. In fact, since the start of 2018, when Thiem really announced himself as a top 10 player, really 4-4 against Dominic Thiem. So now that's 5-4. Rafael Nadal wins 7-5, 6-1, and the first set is incredibly good from both. You see a comeback player in Dominic Thiem, who also had 2 great comebacks in qualifying to even get to have a 1 in 6 chance to play Rafa Nadal. But you have the most fitting opponent in Dominic Thiem. Shades of Federer versus Nadal, but always Thiem versus Nadal. Such exciting matches with a one-hander that's so aggressive and really can stand up to the Rafa forehand, and always such intense athletic points. You really feel that these are 2 guys that are such great competitors and that are so passionate about this sport, and you can feel that every moment that they're on the court. And these are 2 players that are working very hard to come back into the sport. First set, both players are playing incredibly aggressive with incredible intensity. Rafa's serve, even the second serve, looks amazing. He wins 28 out of 31 points on his first serve. He's hitting the backhand with such great depth, and the pace off his backhand is more than I remember when he was still playing. When he was playing United Cup last year. Like, his backhand is hitting with a lot of really good pace. So, he won, for example, Rafa, just overall, just really good stuff from Rafa. And then it only got better against Kubler as well. But in the first set, it was only disappointing by Thiem at 5-6. Rafa hit a bit of a miss-hit, like, lefty forehand that really was like a moon ball that sat up right in front of the net, and then Dominic Thiem hit a backhand that was just way too central, couldn't attack it. Rafa had an easy pass. Then the next point, Dominic Thiem was playing a really great aggressive point. Then he had a forehand cross court into the open corner. He had a great backhand cross court into the ad side, and Rafa defended it. Then he had an open court winner off the forehand. He just went for too much, and he missed it long into that outside corner. The set was done, and Dominic was pretty much out from there. But it was a really high level 12 games. And then against Jason Kubler, Rafa played amazing. In fact, it looked like he was going to get a 6-0 set. The number 1 in the active player stat for most bagels served on tour was Rafa and Novak, with an exact tie at having won 109 6-0 sets in their careers. It looked like Rafa was about to pass him in his 3rd match back. Was about to pass Novak in his 1st match back. Ends up that Kubler holds to the great excitement of the Australian crowd, and it's 6-1 for Rafa. But, I mean, listen, Rafa played an absolutely just really good match overall against Kubler. But both Kubler and Thiem, Kubler's not that aggressive of a player. In fact, some people call him like a right-handed Rafa. Dominic Thiem, aggressive player, not the biggest serve, not the most consistent nowadays with aggression. Jordan Thompson, big serve, big game. And when he's on, like he was against Rafa, that's a very tough player to play. So Rafa need to be tested in that way, but it was a 6-1, 6-2 win for Rafa against Kubler. And then against Thompson, Nadal lost from up 3 match points. First 2 match points, he should have won. He should have put it away. On the first one, he had a great lob. Thompson hit a great lob back with just enough depth to make it a little tricky for Rafa. Rafa probably hits the wrong kind of shot. Kind of just cheeky little cross-court angled backhand volley drop shot. And a little bit over his head. And it's a tough shot to play. He probably didn't have to go for that much, make it that close, and he missed it. Next one, he had an easy forehand winner, or not easy, and it wasn't necessarily going to be a winner, but an advantageous forehand that usually should be pretty easy for Rafa. He misses it, long. And then on the third point, it's Rafa's serve. He actually has a really strong, good body serve, but Thompson gets it, and then it's a well-played point from Thompson, actually, who puts the point away, gets the 6-all in the tiebreaker, and I can believe that I watched a Jordan Thompson-Rafael Nadal match where Nadal had 3 match points, and my takeaway was, wow, Jordan Thompson did everything right, and he played a hell of a match, and he fought well. That was the takeaway. And I knew that Thompson was pretty much a dangerous player. He upset Tsitsipas that didn't give him walls last year. He played a good match against Djokovic at Wimbledon. He can be a good player. Even on the grass courts last year, I believe he played a grass final against Griekspoor on the grass courts. Really good 3-set match. He almost won that one. So he can be a good player, but I think few expected him to come back from 3 match points down. That said, Rafa won 1 more point in the match than Thompson did. Rafa made 79 of 108 first serves in, 73% in. He also won 73% of those points. Rafa hit 7 aces. Thompson hit 8, so only 1 less ace than Thompson. Nadal still played well. It was an incredible match from both. It was not incredible, but it was a great match from both, especially from Thompson, who fought well, and 3 hours, 25 minutes. And what I would say is injury concerns. Novak with the wrist, Rafa with the hip. And I'm not going to say anything because I don't think it's my place to know anything. I don't think anybody knows. I don't know if Rafa knows. I don't know if Novak knows. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Djokovic can't pick up his 25th major title out of Australia, and we'll say, well, it happened again. That could still happen. I'm not going to say that Rafa isn't going to get to the top 5 in the world this season, that he's going to barely play matches, or that this was his last match, or I'm not going to say that he's going to win the Australian Open, that this is nothing. I don't know. Right? It's not my place to say. So I'm just going to say it's going to be interesting to see what Rafa says in his statement the next couple of days. It's going to be interesting to see how Novak is hitting, how he's feeling on the practice court in Melbourne ahead of Australian Open, and especially see him play a few matches because Novak still should be the favorite for the Australian Open. And Rafa, it'll be interesting to see how he looks at Australian Open. But the main thing is, of course, for Nadal, by miles, is that we just want to see him step onto the court. But yeah, those were a few thoughts. Team really played a great match. Kubler didn't have much for Rafa. Thompson played a fantastic match, really fought well. I like to see that. And yeah, the other thing I will say though, Rafa, he looked really good. He looked really, really, really good. His defensive hand skills, amazing as always, really making his movement very strong. Noticed that a few times. I mean, lateral movement is one thing, but whenever his opponent hit a drop shot, he had so many great flicks moving forward in all 3 of his matches. In fact, I wrote that down even before the Thompson match. There's a viral clip now of him running down to a drop shot, hitting a great flick. His movement running up and down the court is still just about as good as ever. Lateral movement may be slowed down, but like I said, the skills that he has on defense to really turn that around anyway is so good. And yeah, like I said, the backhand's great. The forehand, he can still hit the forehand. But the big question is the longevity and the season as a whole, right? Can he play a full season? Can he keep this level up? I knew that he was going to come up with a really strong level at some point. To me, it was less about that and how well he's going to hit forehands, etc. And I felt like if he's ready, I felt like the movement was probably going to be pretty decent as well. The difference isn't how good is his athleticism in a single match. It's how good is his fitness for an entire season. And that's what's yet to be answered, how long he can sustain this level, how much he can play. And I will say this. If he can play the level of the first two matches at Roland Garros, and if he can even improve upon that level and be healthy, he's one to watch. So hopefully he improves upon it. And that's not to say he'll definitely win 3 more majors or whatever if he plays out that level, but I will say that he played really well, and it was the thing that shocked me. I won't say I was shocked by how well Nadal comes back, because at this point I just don't doubt him. But what I will say is that his intensity from the first point, right when he came back, the confidence, caught me off guard, and I wish that it didn't, because he showed me that throughout his whole career. But it's really incredible stuff. The aggression, the intensity, the confidence that he played with. Why shouldn't he be confident? That's the question for you. All right, so second topic that I want to talk about is Novak. Novak, in 9 of his last 14 matches, he has lost at least one set. Before the Minaur match, in 8 of his last 13 matches, the opponent took it to 3 sets. 2 of them were losses. Jannik won. 2 of those matches were losses where Jannik won. That means that he has lost, including Davis Cup, Novak has lost 2 of his last 4 matches. He's lost 3 of his last 9. And he's gone to 3 sets, and he's at least lost a set in 9 of his last 14. Before the Minaur match, he went to 3 sets in 8 of his last 13. Twice to Rune, twice to Sinner, Lehechka, Hurkacz, Rublev, and Griekspoor. All took him to 3 sets. And then, of course, Minaur, 1-6, 4-6, 4. Alex Minaur played one hell of a match. What Alex Minaur did that was different from the dismantlement that Novak produced last year in Australia, what Minaur was doing was he was actually willing to defend. Sometimes you want to say, Minaur wants to be aggressive. Why does Minaur like fast courts? He's a grinder. He's a defensive player. Well, there's a lot to say there. That's why I have this podcast, so I can talk in depth. Why does Minaur like the faster courts, the indoor courts, the this and that? Shouldn't he like clay courts more? No. His defense isn't going to be as effective, I think, on a clay court as it's going to be on other surfaces, because if his defense, he's way behind the baseline, just popping these balls up, it really gives his opponent a chance to really move forward, get advantageous positions in the court. If he's playing on a fast court and he could get good depth and pace off the defense like Medvedev likes to do, then his game is actually going to work a whole lot better, because the defense is effective. And that's one thing that Minaur, since 2022 in my opinion, but especially starting last year as well, when the results really started coming in, was I noticed that he was really making it so that he was getting a lot of depth off the defense. His defense was being a lot more effective. He was playing a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more on the baseline, because there's no question about Alex de Minaur's speed. The guy is called the Demon, the Speed Demon. There's nothing you can say about his speed. He will hit shots that should be impossible, that you've never seen before. You're amazed when he steps onto the court, and you're like, this guy is unbelievable with his speed with his foot speed. There's no question about that, and his athleticism. But what I will say is that he has really worked hard on making it effective. Not only will he get the ball back in play, his defense to offense and counterpunching, getting back into the point, and finding winners also, and ways to be aggressive works. And that's what he was. He was getting more depth and effectiveness on defense, and then he was fearless. He was just, whenever he had an opportunity, he stepped in and he was aggressive. And it was working really, really well. A stat that's pretty famous now from this match is he won 33 out of 34 first serve points. Novak's wrist was a question mark. And I really want to put more of a focus on de Minaur because I thought even if Novak wasn't 100%, which he wasn't, then I still think the fact that Demon was able to play at such a high level in such a high pressure moment and finish off Novak when Novak was still a top tier threat. I mean, Novak didn't retire. It's not like he wasn't moving to the balls. De Minaur took the match, which is something that only a top 10 level player would have been able to do, in my opinion. And Alex de Minaur has a good shot at the top 10. If he gets to play Zverev at the United Cup, which I'll talk about United Cup later in this podcast as well, he'll get to play Zverev at the United Cup later. If he beats Zverev, then he gets to top 10. Even if Australia loses only if Alex de Minaur loses to Zverev, but Australia still wins the semi-final, which might be a little bit unlikely. Tomljanovic has been playing a lot for Australia. But that said, Germany has Angelique Kerber, who hasn't really been winning singles matches. That could actually be a pretty good match with two comeback players, especially Kerber being more of a top player trying to come back, but both comeback players. But yeah, even if de Minaur loses match, but Australia gets to the final and he wins his singles rubber in the final, then he's still top 10. I was specifically looking at Alex de Minaur this year, and I was like, he has a good chance to get top 10, even though he's defending quite a few points for him at the start of the season. I was like, he's got a good shot at it. So it's one of these guys that when not a lot of players reach the top 10. I think it's actually a really important benchmark. And when Tiafoe did it last year, it wasn't like Federer reached the top 10. It's like, oh, obviously he should be in the top 10. It's not like Jannik Sinner reached the top 10. He's like, obviously he should be in the top 10. But still, I was like, Tiafoe's a top 10 player. That makes sense. This is good. So when Alex de Minaur reaches the top 10, even though he hasn't in his career so far, but even though he was number 15 in the world, I think as much as like 4 years ago, I'll be like, yeah, this is good. De Minaur's a top 10 player. This makes sense. This is good. So to me, it makes sense, especially once he gets one more big win at the United Cup. It makes sense to me. Especially since some of the players at the top 10, like Taylor Fritz, honestly haven't been the most consistent players recently. So de Minaur moving up just makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Djokovic's two best streaks in the country, China and Australia. 2010 through 2014, he won 28 straight matches in China. Lost to Federer in the Shanghai semifinals, 6-4, 6-4. 10 years later, his best streak in a country, in Australia, from 2019 to 2024, the very start of 2024, basically the same time frame, 43 consecutive matches, loses 6-4, 6-4 to Alex de Minaur. So, there you go. That's what it is. And the streak almost ended last year in Adelaide. Djokovic was 1 point away from losing to Korda, but it ends this year 6-4, 6-4 to Demon. But yeah, Djokovic and Nadal, a lot of people will be looking at the draw for Australian Open. A lot of people will be looking at what their health is looking like. We hope that both players can play and that both players are at their best. And Rafa, listen, I don't know what to compare the season to of Rafa if we are going to make a comparison to players of the past, especially to Roger. Rafa at the Australian Open will be the exact same age as Roger when he won his last big tournament. Federer won 2019 Miami when he was 37 years old, 236 days old. Rafa on the Australian Open final day will be 37 years old and 238 days old, which is almost the same. So, there you go. That's what it kind of is with Rafa, and that means that he still has a chance to win big events, because Roger kind of showed that he did, and guess what? 5 months later, Roger got 1 point away from winning Wimbledon against Djokovic at 32 years old, playing some phenomenal tennis, and a few months after that, he beat Djokovic in straight sets at the 5th biggest event of the year at the ATP Finals, so who knows? I think that Rafa is a guy who's come back from injury so many times. He knows it. I mean, I still think he feels like he can be competitive. This guy's different on clay courts. This guy's different at Roland Garros. The fact that he can almost always find a way on clay makes me think that on clay courts, he's a guy to watch out for. And I've said it before, but at the Olympics, if he is healthy, playing for his country, a guy to look out for. All right, number two, third topic I want to talk about, WTA tournaments this year, Brisbane and Auckland. So Brisbane, I've gotten a chance to watch a few matches this week, or at least for a few of them watch a little bit of it as it happens live, and then a few of them I've kind of caught the replay. It's been hard. 2023 didn't have a long off season. I kind of wish that tennis had a longer off season. I think off season helps in a lot of ways, although even though we had an off season, a lot of players were still playing different exhibitions, which were pretty high level and intense. But either way, it's taken me a little bit getting used to the fact that tennis is already back, and also with very little break. But the main thing is Australia is about 15, 16 hours ahead of me, so the time's a little bit wonky, but I'm getting to the swing of things. It's still been quite exciting. I'm very excited for the Australian Open. Then the indoor events, clay swing, I'm excited for all that. I'm just getting used to the swing of things. But I did get a chance to watch, to look at a little bit of the Brisbane Auckland events. First, we can start with Auckland. So in Auckland, you have a player like Coco Gauff, you have a player like Svitolina, you have Raducanu, a few players like that. Raducanu Svitolina was a really good match. That was the match that, for whatever reason, I got to watch the most of as it happened. In fact, I watched the entire second and third set. I watched parts of the first set as well. Crazy match, to be honest. I was really excited by the level that Emma Raducanu showed. In fact, in my opinion, she should have finished this match off. I thought it was her match to win. She was up 3-1 in the second set tiebreaker. There was a game at, I believe at 4-3. It was 4-3. And she had multiple break points. Svitolina fought really well to come back. It was Svitolina a little bit more defensive, Raducanu a lot more aggressive. So it was a really good match in that way, and both played at a really, really good level. But Raducanu gave Svitolina 14 break chances. Svitolina took 6 of them. She broke 6 times. Raducanu herself broke just 4 times out of 13. And Svitolina Emma probably not doing quite good enough on serve. She had 60% of first serves in, won about 60%, too low. Svitolina won 68%, had 64% first serves in. Third set dragged it down big time for Emma, too. She only won 50% of first serve points and 57% in. The funny thing is, Svitolina, if we're looking at these stats, Svitolina hit about 56% first serves in, but Raducanu she just looked so mentally out of it that I thought that the big thing was that Raducanu was just so mentally out, she wasn't even taking aggressive advantage of the second serve return, which is not really good. I think that it's really good to see Raducanu is one of the players that has been coming back this week, which is really good. But another player, Naomi Osaka, I think two of the biggest things for both of them is that they look happy on the court, that they are mentally with it and taking advantage of their chances that they get in the match and the mental side, right? So, honestly, that's a big thing for both of these aggressive, huge players, Osaka and Raducanu. Of course, Osaka, a much more decorated player, having won 4 majors and all the things that she did at her prime, or at her prime so far in her career. Who knows if she hits another prime? She really could. But yeah, that is a big thing that I would say for both of them. Also, Raducanu just won 4 second serve return points, just 2 on first serve return that third set. So, third set was a blowout. The first 2 sets were incredibly high quality, and the second set especially. And I felt like Raducanu should have taken it. There's a backhand into the net after a long rally where I felt like Svitolina was starting to break down a little bit, and if Raducanu just went a little bit more high percentage on that backhand, made it over the net, it's one of those things where you wonder, would this tennis match be owned by a different player? Would it have another player's name on it? Would Raducanu have won? Who knows? But either way, she had her chances, and she just didn't take enough of them. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. By the way, while we're talking about so many players back this week, also Caroline Wozniacki is back. Kerber is back in United Cup. Tomljanovic is back. Nadal is back on the men's side. And then, what else you have? Anisimova is back. She had a win this week before she was pretty much dismantled by Marie Boskova, but that's kind of what it is. Boskova herself got dismantled a bit too. Anisimova, I think, lost 6-1, 6-0 or something. Svitolina beats Marie Boskova 6-0, 6-3. So there's levels to this, huh? There's levels to this. Anisimova is a player who I think has such a high peak. It's just about the consistency, right? So we'll see how she can do. And then also another comeback as we get to Hong Kong as well on the men's side. The main kind of tournaments I want to talk about are Brisbane for the men's and the women's, and then also United Cup, which we'll get to as well. But to go to Hong Kong for a second as well, if we can. So another comeback player, Marin Cilic. Cilic is a guy who I think is underrated. And I don't say that Marin Cilic is underrated and then say Cilic in another era would have won 6 or 7 majors. No offense to Marin, no. I don't think so. But what I will say is that he's literally underrated because his career is a career of results that match for a player who was talked about. Like, Cilic isn't even in the conversation. Like, Cilic has a career at least comparable, or at least half comparable to a guy such as Jo-Wilfried Tsonga or one of these guys. And I would probably put Tsonga above Cilic, and I think that Tsonga probably should have reached the final at Roland Garros and Wimbledon. He was a very surface versatile player who did well at the majors, just couldn't quite get over the line there a lot of the time. But either way, whether he's better than Tsonga or not, he's a guy who's been so consistent throughout his career. 3 major finals at 3 different majors, has a Masters, beat Murray in the final, has a US Open, he beat Federer in the semis. Nobody ever talks about him. This is a guy who's so consistent. He's been around forever. He's been at the top for a while. So he kind of fell out now, but he's 34, 35. He was in the top 50 in the world, I think, from like 2008 to 2022, and he was in the top 20 for most of that period of time. He was in the top 10 for a long time. So people just don't talk about Cilic, but I think that's a mistake. He's one of the only guys of this century to reach all 4 semifinals of all of the majors. From players who started playing in the 21st century, if I'm not mistaken, at this moment in time, the only 6 players that have reached the semifinals of all 4 majors are Andy Murray, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic. This much we know, right? And then you have a guy like Tomas Berdych, who he should have been. He also reached all 4. And then you have Cilic. It's just those 6, not Ferrer, not Del Potro, not Wawrinka. Wawrinka never did it at Wimbledon. You don't have any of those who've reached all of the semifinals. Not Alcaraz yet. He's barely played at the Australian Open, so he has a good chance to do it though at this coming Australian Open. And Dimitrov is another guy. He just needs a Roland Garros semifinal. Almost did it last year, but Cilic should be higher rated. Anyway, shout out Cilic. I like Cilic, but oh my god, it was a travesty, right? This was an absolute travesty. 9 match points, come and gone against. Regardless of ranking, one of the most unbothered and clutch names and players on the whole tour. He could be outside the top 100. He could be in the top 20. He could be in the top 30. He could be 65 in the rankings. I don't care where he is. One of the most clutch, unbothered players, and his name is Jan-Lennard Struff. He's just clutch. He's just solid. And he saves 9 match points to win in a 3rd set tiebreaker against Marin Cilic on his comeback. And this, I mean, come on, man. This is a heartbreaker of heartbreakers for Marin Cilic. He just wants to forget about it, right? He just wants to forget about it. Some other players doing well. Chinese player Shang, who I've had my eye on for a while. I think it was the 2022 Australian Open. I heard about this kid. I think, I don't remember exactly, maybe Shanghai qualifying. I've known about this guy for a while. I remember seeing him at Australian Open, first time I actually watched a match of his. Right away, the forehand stood out to me. I was like, this kid has such good potential on his forehand. The more I watch of him, I'm like, I don't know if he's a top 5, top 10, top 15 player in the future. I don't know what his ceiling is, but one thing I know is that he has like top tier potential for the forehand. I think he could have one of the best forehands in the future on the tour. Really great stuff. He won 2 third-set tiebreakers. Also has a good win over Tiafoe as well with some great shot making, 6-4, 6-4. Big Foe actually playing better tennis, but nothing for Shang, which is really good. Arthur Fils also doing well. He played a great match against Rublev, but not quite enough. Rublev is just so solid. So solid, 2 one-sided sets there, and then, or really 3 pretty one-sided sets there. Rublev taking in the third. But yeah, those are a few things that kind of happened there. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on the at Hong Kong on the ATP side. Who was it? I think Kotov beat Batista Agut. Let me see what the semifinal exactly is. Rublev versus Shang. So Rublev playing 2 teenagers in a row. Rublev versus Shang and Offner versus Ruusuvuori. 2 very underrated names, by the way. Offner and Ruusuvuori, the definition of underrated. Ruusuvuori, to be honest, lives a little bit in Jannik Sinner's shadow because people always compare him to Sinner, but he's a fantastic player in his own right. And Offner, who some people barely even watch play, but he's really a fantastic player, great forehand as well. So we'll see what happens in this one. I think it's an opportunity for Ruusuvuori. He's been playing really well. Rublev might be too experienced for Shang. Shang's played a lot of tennis so far this week, but I wouldn't count Shang out fully, but it will be tough to beat Tiafoe and Rublev back-to-back, but stranger things have happened. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, let's go on to Brisbane. So in Brisbane, well, first of all, this might be the most insane 250 event ever. At least the most insane combined 250 event ever, WTA, ATP combined. Because you have Sabalenka playing, you have Raducanu playing, you have Rafa coming back, you have, on the other side, you have Murray, Rune, Dimitrov. So many players in the draw as well. And then also you have Krejcikova, who was in the draw. You have players like Ostapenko playing really well. I hope I mentioned Osaka coming back. I think I did. Just a lot of really, really good players playing. And it's been good. It's been a really, really good event. Really, really good event. And I want to talk about some of the highest level matches this week because it's been incredibly high level. Incredibly high level. So first of all, also Kenin was in the event. She lost early on to Rodianova in straight sets. Which Sofia Kenin is a player that I'm excited about this year, but she's still too inconsistent. She's either losing to names that she has no right losing to, some players who are even outside the top 100 in the world last year, or she's beating names that she has absolutely no right to beat. And there's no middle ground there for Sofia Kenin. So just try the lottery out if you're going to predict where she's going to be at the end of this year. I almost wanted to give her top 10 because of how good she looks sometimes, and how good she is across multiple surfaces, but we've got to wait and see, I think, for that. Okay, and then also in Brisbane, before we get to some of the other kind of matches and some of the bigger matches, especially on the WTA side, which had some really great matches. Andy Murray loses a heartbreaker to Dimitrov. This is a guy who beat him at the US Open last year when some people were saying, maybe Murray reaches the second week. Finally, no. Dimitrov dismantled him at the US Open. Andy took the first set off of Grigor, playing amazing tennis, and then Grigor really leveled up at the end. But Andy didn't play perfect. I mean, he only made 59% first serves in, won 63%. Grigor won 82%. Andy not doing so well off the return. Grigor serving really well all year last year. Dimitrov also managed to break Andy 4 times out of 4 chances. Andy only 2 times and out of 5 chances. And then, Grigor showed the form of the second half of 2020, showed form of 2023 in the second half of the match. And, not all the stats are for Dimitrov. Second serve points, Andy did better, despite playing 4 more, but there's very little to show for the stats that were in Andy's favor. Needs to get the kind of aggression off the first serve, get the reliance off the first serve, Andy, in my opinion. Get more free points off the serve. And, I don't know. There's something about Dimitrov that he really just got to Andy at the end of the day, and Andy just not able to cross the line. Needs that consistent aggression, needs to keep the intensity, and I don't know. When he's getting close, he needs to be able to cross that line, and I don't know if it's confidence, I don't know what it is, but I hope they find something at the Australian Open. He had some amazing matches won there last year, so we'll see what he can do. Court out. Korda lost early to who was it? To Hoffman, which is a bad loss for Korda. Ugo Humbert withdrew, who I picked Rafa losing in the quarterfinals actually, but I thought it was partially due to Ugo Humbert's great form. Ugo Humbert withdrew, but then Thompson beat him anyway. But Humbert also withdrew out of Adelaide, I saw as well, so I really hope that Humbert is healthy for the fast pace of the Australian Open hard courts, because we have to see that. I actually think Humbert is good on all three surfaces, but I want to see him at the Australian Open because he's coming with such good momentum and form if he can only play. He's only withdrawn out of Brisbane. He won the last tournament he played last year, so he's on a great win streak if you don't count that in. So he's just on some really good form. So that's some things I would say. And then going into kind of Brisbane, I first want to talk about Rybakina, Sabalenka, and then I'll go into kind of the big epics of the tournament because I think that's an interesting topic. First of all, Bagel Central. So, bagels and breadsticks. So many bagels and breadsticks. So, Rybakina actually had a tougher first round against young player Gadecki, who has a wild card into the Australian Open. She's only 21 years old, Australian player. She put up a great fight. And it was really, really good to see. It was actually 4-4, 15-30 off of Yelena's serve in the first set. Gadecki had some really crafty shots. And, but she didn't take the opportunity at 4-4. Then she went down love 40 at 4-5. She brought it back to 30-40, but it was enough for Elena to run away with it. And, also her forehand was starting to break down, even though it was looking good for most of the match, especially compared to, Elena's. But Gadecki showed some good skills and talent, especially some athleticism. Some kind of Radwanska sitting on the ground shots. Some good athleticism, but Rybakina was the more solid. I will say, though, I would keep an eye on Gadecki. This is one of the matches where I watched it, and I was like, I sense potential. She's only 21. She's one of these people. I'm keeping an eye on her, big time. She was also down 5-1 in the second set, and she got her first 3 break points to chance against Elena's serve. She was fist bumping, like she still believed. Like, those are the signs I look for a player. So Rybakina had a tougher match in the second round, in her first match, especially in the second set. Second round, well, the first round, she won 80% of first serves, 80% of first serves in. Sorry, she won 80% of first serve points. Second match, perfection. I really think that Elena Rybakina has one of the highest peaks on the tour, contender for the highest peak on the WTA side. The way she's just hitting the lines and looks so perfect out there, at her best, just such kind of elegant kind of movement and footwork to get to the shots and just place them where she needs to place them, backhand and forehand with such pace, is so amazing to watch. And I mean, in her second round, she doubled Mertens' points, 56-28. She hit 81% of first serves in, hitting absolute bombs, winning 80%, hitting it so hard, endless winners, just perfect. Amazing. Sabalenka, similar to Rybakina, had a tougher first set against Bronzetti. But then the second set, she lost 5 points. She lost 5 points. Even the first point of this match was crazy. First point of this match was a pretty standard neutral shot that made her run a little bit off the return of Bronzetti off the big serve that Sabalenka hit. And she hit a clean winner across court, which was already such an athletic shot. And I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see Sabalenka and how she does this year, showing, I mean, it's amazing what kind of a season she had last year, where she reached 2 major finals, incredible consistency. Her mental side was much better than ever before. Her second serve better, much less double faults. The same fearlessness as always, as just picking her spot and going for it. All out, hitting the second serve sometimes big and going for an ace-off second serve. And it's going to be really cool to see. She got to 2 major finals, all 4 major semifinals. Arguably, she could have reached the final in all 4 of those matches. So, it's going to be interesting to see how she does. It's amazing what she did last year because she was already in like the top 5, top 10 in the world for about 4 or 5 years. She had won a Masters event every year of the last 4 or 5 years, but she still big time climbed up a tier in the rankings. So that's just so hard to do. And then also Sabalenka won her second match 6-0, 6-1. In other news, Mira Andreeva, 16-year-old Russian player. 6-2, 6-3, 6-2, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. 3 consecutive breadsticks. And those were Mira Andreeva's first 6 sets of the season. This girl is going to be a big problem soon. She faced off against another young player, a Czech player, Linda Noskova, last night for me. Really Australia during the day. And the aggression of Noskova just way too much for Andreeva. She lost, but Andreeva is going to be a big person to watch. Noskova, Raducanu is going to be very, very good. And then, like I said, Sabalenka 6-0, 6-1. Coco Gauff yesterday won 6-1, 6-1. She won a bagel against Fruhvirtova. I want to talk about that as well. So many bagels in Rest 6. Coco, Elena, and Arena all looking so good. Real quick, I'll move over to the Coco and Fruhvirtova, and then I want to talk about the 3 Brisbane kind of epics. So Gauff versus Fruhvirtova, I got to see this match in full. I actually did live commentary for another channel that I do, Quality Shot Tennis. I was quite compelled by it because it's a match between 2 players that might have a rivalry in the future. Fruhvirtova is only 16. To be completely honest, I'm more excited by Brenda than Linda at the moment, partially because Brenda is still only 16, has so much potential to go. I think she has more aggressive potential. I actually love the way her forehand looks, especially when she's hitting through it. She is mostly a clay player. You can throw a million unbelievable stats from Brenda Fruhvirtova at the ITF level for what she's doing, but she's already won 15 ITF titles. She's 16. She turned 17 in April. She is 15-0 in ITF finals. Every other week I see this girl is winning an ITF final. And you might say, what's ITF? But that's not easy. Listen, only 2 women in history had won 12 ITF titles by the time that they were 18 years old. She's 16. She's already won 15. It's ridiculous. All but one on clay courts, though, which is her preferred surface. She's a Czech player. She is a bit more defensive at the moment. Something I can tell about her is her backhand especially is very defensive. Her game probably very attackable for the top players. You saw that partially with Coco as well. But still, she's still very top tier kind of play. And once she gains more experience, packs on some muscle, and hopefully her forehand is a bit of a buggy whip shot. I would like to see her play that shot a bit more aggressive and hit through it. But still, very, very good. She began 2023 at 1,095 in the world. She ended it at 128 in the world. I think that's 2022. 2022. She became the first 14-year-old to win ITF events back-to-back. Also to have 5 ITF events, period. And she puts her goals very high. She wants to be world number 1. She wants to win many Grand Slams. And she also at 16 became the youngest to win double-digit ITF titles. So at these lower tier levels, I mean, she's kind of unprecedented at the moment. She also won 9 ITF junior she also played 9 ITF junior finals, 2020, 2021, where she went 7-2. The last 3 were against her sister Linda. 1 was against Mira Andreeva. So if Andreeva and Brenda Fruhvirtova is a rivalry in the future, remember this video, remember this rivalry that really started at an ITF junior final in 2020. Just a fun fact for you. But yeah, Gauff, Fruhvirtova. I mean, Fruhvirtova actually started the match super well. Gauff was way off her game, to be honest, at the start, especially off serve. She got broken early. It was 2-1 for Brenda Fruhvirtova. She got broken back by a well-played game by Coco, but a tough, fought-out game. Then at 2-2, Brenda Fruhvirtova got more break points, largely in part to Fruhvirtova, but Coco stood so solid after, I think, 2 or 3 deuces, and she held out 3-2. Those 5 games were by probably 10 multiples, the longest 5 games of the match, because after that, Coco completely ran away with it. It was 6-3, 6-0, and Fruhvirtova really had nothing to get. It was really, the Coco is another player who started off at an extremely young age. She's still super young, but she started winning at 14, 15 years old. She beat Venus at Wimbledon at 15 years old, and in that famous first round match. And today was in that match, she was the more experienced player. And she knew in the second set to put the foot on the gas right away. and win the first game of the set and break. Fruhvirtova really put her all into that game to keep the lead. And also just, I don't know, Brenda, her lack of experience, she kind of just mentally was out of it in the second set. And it was a lack of experience, but still. Brenda Fruhvirtova can't really contest with Mira Andreeva. Andreeva is actually younger. She was born 27 days younger. They were both born in April 2007. But still, an amazing 16-year-old in either way. And they were both, that's just alien stuff, that they're playing this well so young. Okay, now on to the Brisbane Epics, and mostly I kind of want to finish with this and then United Cup. And then I also have slight comments on the ATP website, which had changes, which I really wanted to talk about. I don't really like so much. But first I want to talk about Brisbane. I have a few things to say about the Brisbane WTA event and some of the epics that we've seen in the event. First, I want to talk about Osaka's first match back. So, in Osaka's first match back against Korpatsch, she won 73% of her first serve points, lots of winners, big hitting. Korpatsch, not the strongest serve. Her ground stroke seemed to break down a bit. It was actually a really good opponent for Osaka. But Korpatsch seemed to really, really enjoy it, and she played her absolute best. She really maximized. And the second set was really tough. She fought well. She saved 2 break points. It was 9-7 in the second set tiebreaker. And, I don't know, Osaka served for it. She got broken twice, including the first game of the second set, so it did come with its issues. I still think the mental side is the biggest worry for Osaka, the big points. And that was we saw that in this match, but she got the win at the end, even though Korpatsch really, really seemed to enjoy herself and put up a good fight. She seemed to be happy that Osaka was back herself. And, despite her game not really lining up for Osaka, it was a really, really good match. Other matches I want to talk about, there are 3 epics that seem to have happened in this event pretty much in consecutive days. And Osaka versus Pliskova. Osaka hit 40 winners and 12 errors. Yes. Naomi Osaka, in her first comeback event in about a year, hit 40 winners and 12 errors. She was not the winner of this tennis match. She was not the winner of this tennis match. Total points won, 100 for Osaka, 101 for Pliskova. Pliskova, 47 winners, 24 unforced errors. Very, 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 very good as well. Thing is, Osaka 2 for 12 on break points, which partly cost her, like I said, the kind of mental side confidence in those big points might not be so good. There weren't a lot of close service games in the second sets. Both players doing great on serve throughout. At 3-4, 40-30 Osaka in the second set. I saw at that point in the match, it was 88% first serve points won for Osaka, 82% for Pliskova. Not a lot of opportunities for players to get a break point. So that was kind of the stuff that we saw. And, I don't know. There was such good hitting from both. The depth and kind of pace that Pliskova can get off the backhand when they're doing amazing backhand-to-backhand rallies is so amazing. Just with utter ease when Pliskova is playing her best, the way she can scoop up the backhand and get it back with some passion into in the backhand. And, it was really good stuff. To break, it was a net court to get to deuce, and then it was a great drop shot at deuce before a solid, strong forehand cross court to get Osaka on defense. Off her backhand, then a winner into the opposite corner, forehand winner, which she hit even bigger. That was at 3-3 in the third set to get to 4-3. 4-3 was Osaka's chance, but an ace out wide, and then some big serves got Pliskova out of it. And then the last couple games of the match, it was a really, really, highly contested match until Pliskova kind of served it out at love. The 4-3 game, Pliskova really was just serving way too well for Osaka to have a chance. So it didn't end hugely contested, but until that point, the match was incredibly highly contested. On Pliskova's first serve, Osaka could win only 10 points of 68. Pliskova could only win 12 of 64 on Osaka's serve. Second serve, Osaka won about 23 of 36, which is really good. Pliskova only about half, 18 of 33. And Pliskova hit the more aces, 16 to 14. Outrageous level pace right from the start. And I don't know. It was a really crazy match. And there was another moment where at 2-3, 30 all in the third set, Osaka hit a great forehand angled pass using some great athleticism. Down the next point, Osaka hits a big serve down the tee, and Pliskova hits a remarkable forehand clean winner down the line. Just a steaming winner, and that was really what the match was. Just more and more pace coming at you, but some great athletic rallies as well. I actually thought this was the best match played in the tournament so far, of the three kind of epics that we've seen so far. Just so high level, winner after winner. Naomi Osaka tweeted afterwards, "This was fun." That's what you want to see. You want to see these players enjoying it, because not many people have the opportunity to play tennis at this high level, and you're probably only going to win if you're not miserable out there. So it's good that Osaka was at least able to enjoy the ridiculous level that both players were showing. And then the other one that I want to talk about is Ostapenko and Pliskova, which is another one which was just huge hitting from both players. Ostapenko is just, you never know what you get with Ostapenko. 3 clean winners to win the first set 6-2 after Pliskova serving 40-30. Just 3 unbelievable winners, including a scoop up from the baseline backhand cross-court winner, which Pliskova was just like, what am I facing off against? But it was an absolute power and winner fest. Anything short was going to be absolutely pummeled. It was either one of their shorter balls that kind of breaks down a little bit more, or one of their more like standard winners. But really, very few winners, very few errors, so many winners. It wasn't the most consistent, in which in some of the rallies, somebody was often going to hit a shot that fell a little bit shorter, but the other player was always going to take advantage of it. So almost every rally ended with a winner, but I didn't think like it was like the Osaka-Pliskova match where almost every shot in every rally was so high level. But still, it was really phenomenal that both players were just hitting winners left and right. And Ostapenko eventually served it out at advantage. It was an ace out wide at 5-3. So it was highly contested throughout. The end of the match was incredibly close as well. It was an ace out wide. Her 4th ace of the match. Pliskova hit 18 aces throughout the match, but Ostapenko got the win. And I still say, if Ostapenko finds a way to sustain a level like she played in this match, she could have another Roland Garros 2017 moment. But she needs to sustain that level. She can't let the mental side kind of get in her way. She needs to just play solid, put her head down, show the talent that she really does possess and the firepower, and sustain that level, which is easier said than done. Ostapenko had 52 winners, 24 errors. It was insane. Pliskova only hit 12 errors. It was a ridiculous match. And then Ostapenko-Azarenka was the third match. Azarenka, so many aces. I think it was the second most aces she ever hit in a match. So many winners from both. First two sets were pretty one-sided in either direction. Third set was very close, but there were chances for both in the first 2 sets as well. But yeah, it was Ostapenko who got the win at the end. Ostapenko was contesting highly a double bounce call. It was pretty clear on it was close, but on the replay you could tell that Azarenka got her shot off the before the second bounce. Ostapenko said triple bounce. I love what Ostapenko brings to tennis. It's this kind of entertainment value that's so high. And it's just fun to watch Ostapenko because you never know where you're going to get with her. It's that unpredictability and chaos that really brings so much to tennis, in my opinion. And it's wild. It's wild to watch, and her tennis is so fun to watch. Azarenka is still playing such good tennis on hard courts. Such good tennis on hard courts. She reached the semifinals in Australia last year. Got pretty close to winning the first set, which went to a tiebreaker against Raducanu in the semis as well. Won that event twice before, of course. We'll see what Azarenka can do, how long she can keep going at this top level. She has no signs of slowing down at this moment. But we'll see. But those are 3 insane matches. I thought Osaka-Pliskova was the best of the bunch. Really good back-end rallies. United Cup, we've got Poland versus France. We've got Germany versus Australia, which is Zverev versus de Minaur. You have Tomljanovic taking on Kerber, 2 comeback players. And the other, you have Hurkacz. You have Hurkacz taking on Mannarino. You have Swiatek taking on Caroline Garcia, which is a rematch of Beijing, which was amazing. So that's going to be fun. I want to talk about United Cup, if I could, for a moment. A few interesting things happening in United Cup. Italy didn't do very well, even though Italy won Davis Cup. Sinner didn't play. It was just basically Lorenzo Sonego and Paolini. They basically were Italy basically did the worst of a lot of the countries, unfortunately. So they only won one individual match. They only won 4 sets overall. Paolini won against Angelique Kerber, but it was Kerber's first match back. France has a good team. Mannarino has been doing really well for France. Garcia, Roger Vasselon in doubles, even if, for example, Mannarino can't pull off the men's singles. Australia, obviously, Minaur is playing amazing, but also their doubles, like Matt Ebden, Storm Hunter is great, even though Tomljanovic isn't winning a whole lot of matches at the moment. Poland, I thought Poland was the favorites going in just because Hurkacz and Swiatek are in such good form, and they showed such amazing doubles last year. Well, guess what? 6-0, 6-0, first time that a mixed doubles team wins 6-0, 6-0 double bagel since the 2000s. Hurkacz and Swiatek pulled it off. Such a complete team. Hurkacz with a big serve. Swiatek has just about everything else, and they just fare really well in doubles. Some other interesting things that happened. Greece topped Chile and Canada. Canada would have been really good because Fernandez is on something, which I always saw the potential there. I'm excited that she's finally fulfilling it a little bit. A lot of it has been in team events, which really don't count much for the ranking, but I think she should be seated up in Australia, 31 or 32. So we'll see how that does. But Tsitsipas was injured for a little bit, just like in Canada. Felix got injured, but Tsitsipas played a match against Steven Diaz, which he won. So yeah, it was really good, but that's kind of one thing that happened. Also, Greece, when Tsitsipas couldn't play, they put in another Greek player, 19-year-old player, Stefanos, I believe, Sekularitis, which I watched in full, and it was amazing how well he contested against Jarry, who only won 7-5 in the third set. So that was another fun moment. Let's see what else. I think the big thing is if you have good doubles teams, honestly, because it's largely a doubles tournament. Like, almost all of these ties are going to the mixed doubles event, which kind of makes it feel a little bit disjointed with having a lot of singles players, and it really comes down to mixed doubles. I think Australia, honestly, has a really good shot because they have such world-class doubles with Matthew Ebden and Storm Hunter, who are both two of the best doubles players. But listen, Hurkacz and Swiatek, if they play doubles year-round and didn't focus on singles, like, who knows? They might be one of the best doubles teams in the world, for real. So, United Cup is interesting. I'm going to be excited by Swiatek taking on Garcia. And yeah, Australia tennis, it's back. I just want to talk a little bit about it. Some highlights, Nadal, Djokovic in an upset. Who knows, maybe Djokovic is a little bit more under trouble nowadays. Because he did lose 8 of his last 14 matches, went to 3 sets, and the other one he lost in straight sets to Alex de Minaur, who really he should be a pretty good match against. So who knows, is he getting a little bit more beatable or a little bit more endangered? Who knows? People were saying that all the time. End of 2022, 2023, people were saying that, then he had one of his best seasons. So who knows? I still think to count out Djokovic or to count out Rafa is a mistake. I will stand by that. The ATP website changes. That is the last kind of topic I think that I want to talk about in this podcast. I think I've already gone pretty long here, probably over an hour. So the ATP website had a huge change. Nobody likes it. It's getting a lot of pushback and critique. The name pronunciation on the ATP players, it's not there. Why would that be taken away? That is so helpful, especially for Americans like myself who really struggle with a lot of the pronunciation. That's something that's been a big goal for me this year, is to do better with the name pronunciation. That tool was taken away, so I'll have to do it from other means. And just for general casual fans to know how to pronounce their favorite players' names, don't know why that would be taken away. Career high ranking, much harder to find. I don't know why. It's possible, it's just not there right away. The win-loss record for certain players, especially for certain years and seasons of players' careers, not as easy to find. Information that people like myself would look at every day or every other day. Not there. And that's just putting my toes into the pool. There's so many other things to talk about with what they change on the site. It just looks worse. The layout just looks worse. It's all in like these bubbles and it's just strange. The rankings look uglier. I don't know why they did this. I hope they listen to the fans and decide to change it because I don't really like it very much. But yeah, the off-season was very short, but I'm always excited about tennis being back. I'm excited about Rafa being back. Rafa being back, he's been such an essential figure to tennis. It's always a win. Make sure to join in next Friday for next Anthony's Tennis Stuff podcast. I try to drop these every Friday. I think this one's going to have to come out on a Saturday, for example, but I try to drop it every Friday, or at least a few days from Friday. I try to make it a weekly Friday podcast. So yeah, make sure to join in next Friday for Anthony's Tennis Stuff podcast, where I will be talking about more stuff, especially stuff in the news and events going on. And yeah, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to Anthony's Tennis Hub. If you haven't already, I'll be here with so much more content. Not just this podcast where I talk about current events, but I'm really looking at a lot of other types of videos to do that I think are really interesting and unique for tennis. Whether that's just cool tennis stats or other stuff of that nature where I just talk about things I think are interesting, such as the grass court tennis season and maybe it should be longer, or separating the tour into different tours, or whatever it is. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast, and I will see you guys at the next one.